On Sunday, the 31st of May, many Christians the world over celebrated the solemn feast of Pentecost. And for the uninitiated, Pentecost is pretty much the first birthday of the Christian church. And where did it take place? It took place some 2 millennia ago in Jerusalem. Now you might be wondering, why am I talking about churches and Pentecosts and feasts and birthdays when basically this is a YouTube for COVID-19 in London? Well, answers to those who are patient. But meanwhile, welcome to Arm Wrestling with COVID-19 in London. This is number 23. Yes, the government is easing the lockdown. It is lifting some of the taboos that we weren't allowed to do or practice over the past few weeks. And in its own muddled way, it is trying to send out a message that things are better now, that the curve has flattened somewhat, that the R factor is below 1, and therefore we are transitioning from number 4 to number 3. Now, what does all this mean? For a non-scientist like me, it simply means that things are hopefully getting better. But why do I say hopefully, even prayerfully, considering that I started this YouTube talking about Pentecosts and church birthdays? I say prayerfully and hopefully because I think that we might risk a nastier second wave if we don't get this right. And those multiple openings that are happening now, the speed with which the lockdown is being lifted or eased, somewhat unsettle me. It's almost like we started right at the beginning in March, fumbling our way through indifference. Then when we realized how serious the epidemic was, we suddenly became very committed to it. A total lockdown almost, with the exception of those hardy public servants, both in the NHS and outside the NHS. And then now, we've suddenly discovered, it feels almost like, you know what, we have an economy to relaunch, and therefore, are we compromising a little bit between the economy and the disease, between the economy and health? Fingers crossed. I hope that we get it right for all our sakes. But in the meantime, as bookstores and shops are gradually going to open, and as more and more people go to work, more and more people can go out, more and more people can go and meet friends and family, it's quite conspicuous to me as a Christian believer that churches haven't yet got a plan. When do they open? How do they open? What are the incremental steps that need to be taken? Now, I know for a fact that a task force was set up some while ago, and on this task force sit many representatives of many faith traditions, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, and also Christian representatives, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and the Archbishop of Westminster, Cardinal Vincent Nichols. And the whole idea is that they meet with the minister in charge in order to be able to plan the gradual opening of those churches. But nothing really is happening there. And I think that we should recommit ourselves to trying and find a plan that encourages those various churches, and I'm focusing on churches, but I could be speaking about all the other houses of worship, that we should be encouraging them to start thinking how to open their places, and in what ways would they be able to do that in order to keep us, the faithful as it were, safe? Why? Not only because we need to go and pray. Yes, it is lovely to go into a church, at least for me. It is lovely to go into a church, sit in a pew, meditate, pray, think about all sorts of things, perhaps even light a candle, and then go out feeling a little bit renewed, a little bit refreshed. But there is another equally important role that churches and houses of worship across different faith traditions play. And that is that they heal communities. They bring communities together. They have this bottom-top approach. They manage to create fellowships that actually address the traumas that we've been going through, many of us, many of us, since March. And then they help us re-engage with society. They help us re-enter society. So in a sense, it's not a question of just going and praying. The role of faith in society is far bigger than that. And whether you're a believer or not is not the issue here. And for that, I think we should start thinking of this gradual, incremental, phased, and safe approach to opening churches. Perhaps we can begin with individual prayers, one or two people going together, praying alone. Then that might gradually increase. But it is important to address the soulful spiritual needs, and I mean both soulful and spiritual needs of many people who feel a little bit that sitting in front of the computer, looking at the screen and celebrating Pentecost or a divine liturgy, a service, a mass, is not the same. I'm sure it's the same for Muslims, it's the same for Jews, for Sikhs, for Hindus, for all people of faith. So this is why I think that we should start addressing this. The government should start addressing this a little bit more seriously. It gives me the impression that this particular government, headed by our Prime Minister Boris Johnson, is not terribly concerned about faith issues. Mind you, it is tumbling along, fumbling along, trying to make sense of schools, this, that, and the other. Fair enough. But this is also another need that it should be addressed. And just to prove to you how responsible I am, I focus today on churches. I did not focus on another gripe I have, which is barbers. But that will come, I'm sure, in another episode of my YouTube in order to amuse some of you viewers and some of your comments that I receive with relish. So please keep safe. Enjoy the small freedoms that we're being given one step at a time, but use your common sense, use your judgment, because we are no way out of danger yet.